Say, hey, everybody, how's it going? This is Steve Peterson, broker owner of Infinity Investments. I'm sitting here with a guest of mine who's a friend and business colleague. We've been doing business over 10 years. Ron Ricard, IPX 1031 Exchange. He's an expert in the industry. His company is the industry leader in 1031 exchanges. Ron, how you doing this morning?
Doing fantastic, Steve. Thanks so much for having me. Now, do you actually dress up in a tie at home really all the time?
Well, man, I just try to keep it. I try to keep it good. I got I've got to look good for the, I got to set example for the team. I got
I
the
like it.
wife and the kids downstairs. They're downstairs at the school division right now in the company. So they're in
Got
class. So I just try to keep it looking good for them. One day at a time.
it.
And really, while we're at home, I've been dressing up the last couple of weeks because I was in my sweats the whole time. And I said, you know what, man? I just need to it's hard to have energy, especially in business when you're in the sweats all the time, man. So I was like, man, I'm walking around in suits. My wife's like, where are you going? I was like, oh no, I got a meeting. I felt like throwing the suit back on, man. It's been a while. So as we all navigating through this time, man, and thank you for hopping on because
Yeah.
as we know, with COVID-19, there's all kind of stimulus packages jumping off. We knew that the April 5th, today, by the way, is April 15th. So
Yeah.
praise the Lord that they have extended the deadline. But better than that, that they've also extended what we're going to talk about primarily today is the 1031 exchange deadline. So
Yes.
let's get into that. Tell me what you know so far. Well, first of all, before I get into about the 1031 exchange deadline, before the deadline came during this pandemic, right when we walked into it, the market is boisterous. I mean, I'm involved in a couple exchanges. Now I've been involved in exchanges really the last 5-7 years consistently. That's your business. So before the pandemic, how were things rolling for you guys?
Actually, really, really well. We've had about 3 years now where the market's been pretty consistent, very solid, lots of exchanges. The first 10 weeks of this year, January, February, which are usually our slow months, definitely are slower than the rest of the year, but we're still better than most January, Februarys. March was starting out fantastic. And just
Yeah,
around the 15th, 16th, when this hit, we saw a definite change in the market.
yeah,
But the year, it started out very, very promising. Where I was looking for another great year this year. The reality is people changed their thinking, and
yeah,
especially once we really got into the more statewide and multiple state shelter in place, we had people just absolutely afraid of not being able to find a replacement property within the 45 days. So
yeah,
that definitely had an issue. We also had the issue of a lot of people, their properties falling out of contract
yeah,
because they lost their job or and now we've got the situation, and we saw this yesterday on the CCIM meeting, where the lenders have really tightened up their requirements, needing
yeah.
more money put aside, et cetera. So, that's sunk a few deals on the real estate side, let alone the 1031 side.
Yeah, and I would be what I immediately experienced where I had about 6 deals. I had 6 deals in escrow March 15th, and I know I think my kid's school on March 13th called it. They said, we're out of school for the next month, so after break.
Mhm.
That following week, I had 4 deals, fall out of escrow, and 2 were pretty significant deals, not exchanges, but they were acquisitions. 3 were acquisitions where I represented the buyer. 1 was a listing. All of them fell out due to COVID-19, and it was just what you said. Just people, it was a little bit different because they weren't in exchanges, but their confidence totally just went away, and I think it was a pendulum swing too far. I think now, people are a little bit, their feet are under them a little bit to an extent. But at least at that time, we didn't know what was going on. This thing it was shocking all. People were, hey, you're getting ready to spend $3 or $4 million on a property all of a sudden you're like, wait a minute, all my business operations have come to a halt. And I think business at the end of the day, whether it's small business, it's big, large corporate business, it's government related business, it's the engine of our economy. And I think when that I don't want to just say slows down, kind of stops, I think is probably a better word. It definitely messed with the psyche of a lot of people. And now that we're kind of getting our feet under us, people are trying to figure out, okay, well, where are we going with this? And before the extension of the 1031 came out, I was just thinking, because this is the first time I haven't had anybody like in cash in an exchange or in that identification period for the last couple months in a while. I got one that we're just going into escrow on, and that'll be in escrow to be in cash in 90 days. But usually it's in that, okay, we're in escrow, okay, we're in cash, the pressure's on to find something. That's a big deal. And so as this whole thing jumped off, I was thinking, man, what about the people who are in escrow or maybe coming up on that 180th day, and now the recording office is closed, the lender is like, the appraiser can't get inside the property. What are we going to do? And so we got the good news about the extension. Why don't you talk to us a little bit about that and what what the breakdown of that is?
Right. So let's go back one step. Normally in an exchange, when you sell your property, you have to identify what you're going to buy within the first 45 days from the close of escrow. Now you have 180 days to close the escrow, but for most people, the big thing is finding what they want to buy within those 45 days.
Yeah.
And as we alluded to, there was a lot of people who were just deathly afraid of finding something. And especially if they can't leave their house for a month or two, that's definitely going to be a problem.
Yeah.
So NAR had initially sent a letter to the Treasury and the IRS asking for extensions. And our trade association, along with CCIM and about 40 other real estate groups, followed up with a letter that we had drafted, our company had drafted, that asked for extensions as well. Now, let's step back one more time. The IRS does have the power to provide for extensions on the 45 days and 180 days. They typically will do this in the case of a national or a locally declared or nationally declared local emergency, such as an earthquake, a hurricane. A couple of years ago, we had the fires up in Shasta and Paradise. The year before that, we had the fires in Napa and Sonoma. In those cases, those counties affected received extensions for people who were in the middle of an exchange when that event happened.
Yeah.
This time, though, was really the first time we were looking at a national event. And it was also the first time we could say there really wasn't a date specific that the earthquake hit, the fire hit, whatever. So we had no idea what the IRS was going to do, if they were going to do anything. However, about 3 weeks ago, we met with the IRS, and they indicated that they were going to provide some kind of relief, some kind of extensions. And those finally came out last Thursday night. And so when we sent this out, the bottom line is this. If your client is in an exchange and their identification date is April 1st or later, then instead of the regular 45 days, their identification deadline will be July 15th, period. Whether they close escrow on April 1st or May 1st or all the way to the end of May, their deadline will be July 15th. Wow. So that's initially that said basically we don't have to wait. We don't have to wait to close the escrow. Let's close it now, because if you close the escrow now, you're still going to have almost 3 months to find your replacement property.
Yeah, that's beautiful. So I mean, that's great, because that's so much, like you said, the big part of it is the 45 days. I have experienced issues with the 180-day closing before, but 99 times out of 10, the stress is in that 45-day window. Yeah. And I think people have been, apprehensive, because it's like, man, we can't even look at properties right now, right. And a lot of people, with technology and everything, people buy out of their area and see, but they still want to go and get feet to the street and walk the property as we all should do. if you're going to make a big investment. And so that's been, and we're still navigating through how do we show people, how do we get inspectors in there, how do we get appraisers in there, right? So I think that is great, because I mean that now that's just going to give people a little bit of a breather. Like I guess I'm going into an escrow on a 17 unit building. Hopefully here in the next day or two, we've negotiated everything out. And that was my client is, she's like, we need to find something before we close, and identify at least 2 to 3 properties before we close. Right. And that was before, even the whole pandemic went around. We've been in like a month and a half negotiation with these buyers. And now that it came, she was saying, well, I don't know. I think we just need to. And so this is welcome news to her and anybody in that position that, hey, there's going to be a little bit of relief. Now, what about for folks in that who have maybe identified, right? And we're in that window of time, hey, but now they're trying to close. And I know, like, for instance, so depending on what lender they're with, on a CCIM yesterday, we were talking about the idle loans and the PPP loans. And what several of the lenders on the panel had said was, look, our bank is putting these loans at the top of the priority list. If you're in escrow on an apartment building, an office building, whatever, we're asking you if you can get an extension on that deal, if you can, because we got to take care of this. And I understand that, because if they don't take care, that's like the lifeblood of our economy. We need them to take care of that, right? But if you're an escrow and you're like, hey, we want to get this deal closed, and particularly you're in that 180-day window of time, what is how does that July 15th date come into place with them, and or how does that work on that 180-day piece?
Well, if you look at it just like on the calendar basis, if you close escrow February 16th or later, then having until then your 45th day is April 1st or later, and therefore you're going to get that extension.
Got it.
What that means in effect is, if you close escrow before then,
yeah,
especially like a month before, up to a month before then, these extensions really had zero value to you, because you don't get a chance to re-identify, you don't get a chance to identify additional properties. Now, if you close escrow in like November or December of last year, and you're now within your 180 days, and the 180 days falls after April 1st,
yeah,
you now have until July 15th to complete your transaction. So if you did close escrow in November, December, even the first couple weeks of January, then having until July 15th is going to give you a little bit of extra time. But if you close escrow from, let's say, mid-January to mid-February, the way these deadlines have come out, they really don't benefit you at all. Now, one thing I do want to point out is what we have said so far is based on what the IRS has issued. Normally, when the IRS puts out these extensions, it is very specific to 1031. It's much more detailed. This time, they put these extensions as part of a package of different timeline extensions. And so the 1031 was literally less than a paragraph within there. The reason I'm bringing that up is because we, as well as CCIM, NAR, and others, have gone back to the IRS and asked them for a more comprehensive extension. We wanted to go back farther, because I know people who went into escrow in February, and when this thing hit, they their seller backed out, and now they can't re-identify because the deadlines didn't help them. In addition, there is a very good chance we are not going to be out of this by mid-July. Or if it is, it's going to be much more limited in terms of being able to go out and look at properties, and who knows when inspectors are going to want to go back, appraisers, etc. So there is a very good chance that these extensions are just the first step. There will be additional ones. That's what we are all hoping for. But unfortunately, if you got a client within the 180-day window right now, unless they're in a very specific time situation of when they actually close their escrow, these extensions probably aren't going to help them very much.
Got it. Okay, so there's definitely some relief depending on when you closed.
Exactly.
And hopefully, now here's the good, or at least the good news for a lot of those people of what I've seen in March. I did see a lot of deals get closed the second or third weeks of March, maybe in the first part of April. Our office closed a couple because those deals were already in the queue, already had appraisals done, already had inspections done.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I know, like for instance, Old Republic Title, with those closings were Old Republic Title, who was kind of, in my opinion, leading the charge of getting stuff closed. I know a lot of other title companies are out there making it happen too. But it seemed as though that those properties were already kind of in the queue, and
Right.
particularly had the inspections already, had the appraisals. We're actually, as we speak, one of my agents is conducting an appraisal on a property way up north. I think it's past Lake County, um, uh, Laytonville. I don't know where it's in the mountains, man. They're doing an
It's
inspection.
up 101. I know where it is. Yes.
They showed me the pictures. It looked like it looked like Christmas time. It was all snowy last week, whatever. So they're in there doing an appraisal right now. It's a small property. It's occupied, so they're figuring it out. I told him, please call me when you get back. I want to know how the appraiser did it, all that type of stuff, so we can kind of give some guidance. But I think that's going to be the challenge kind of going forward. And like what you said, Ron, we might not be out of this in July. And so it's great that you guys, all the organizations, are kind of talking to the IRS. What is also great is that it seems as though the IRS is saying, hey, we're willing to be reasonable here,
Yeah.
and I think that's the biggest news that I got, that I saw, that I thought was great, because it was just like, hey man, if these guys are real stringent and they're not going to be flexible, there's going to be a lot of people who did the right things, actually identified the properties, were ready to go, couldn't get it done, and had to pay taxes. And that could be, catastrophic, especially when you did what you were supposed to do. It's hard enough to find a property, and sometimes, hey, you just didn't get it done right. And like what we said, and I've heard you say this a few times, you want to do an exchange not just to defer taxes, you want to exchange to acquire a better asset, or a larger asset or more cash flow. It's not, the deferral of taxes is the added benefit. And so sometimes you may not complete that exchange because you couldn't find a better asset. But it would be a shame if you found that asset, you were credit worthy, and then it couldn't get done. So it's great to hear that there's some relief out there, right?
Right. Let me add one other thing is, this is also may for certain people may end up being a real great opportunity.
Yeah.
And let me explain why. I think, as talked about at the beginning, we've been in a really solid market for the last 4 or 5 years. Market's been going up, and until the beginning of March, everything was still looking pretty good, which means we were getting pretty good prices on real estate, especially commercial real estate.
Yeah. Yeah.
For a lot of people, they went into contract pretty much at the top of the market.
Yeah.
So when they sold the property in February or March, or even now in April, they sold at the height.
Yep.
If we get extensions on this thing until July and August, and the market is starting to feel the signs of the fact that people have been out of work, et cetera.
Yeah.
Are we at the beginning of a recession? Where are we at? There's a good chance you're going to be able to do something we have never been able to do before: sell at the top and buy when the market's lower. And so they're going to get a lot better opportunities if they can wait a little bit of time, see where the market shakes out, and there's a good chance people can really score fantastically in their exchange if they time it perfectly.
Well, I mean, I think what you just said is the nail on the head. I just had this conversation with my client. I'm entering into, hopefully entering into this contract on, because I was telling her, I said, hey, we've got a negotiated price. The buyer's still willing to move forward. They feel that the price is a great price for them. It's off market deal. And, but I said to my client, say, hey, you're selling pretty much at the top with a little bit of a discount, because we're working that in for the buyer. But you're getting the price you wanted, and now you're going to go into a market where you can actually negotiate. Well, how about that, right? Because the last few years it's been difficult as a buyer, like what you said, it's top of the market. So you're pretty much taking it, not all the way, but it's been a seller's market.
Right.
So now if you're able to sell at the top, get these extensions, and then go buy where terms are favorable to you, like what you said. I can't remember a time when that's happened, particularly in the context of exchange. That's been the toughest part, Ron. I've been talking to people the last couple years, and I've been saying this the last couple years. I've been doing a presentation on timing the market. I felt like we were either at the top or close to the top. Um, and to say, hey, let's talk about exchanging. Let's talk about exchanging. And the common thing was, that's a great idea in theory, but what am I going to buy?
Yep.
Where am I going to buy it? Because I like my asset now. If I sell this now, I'm going to have to buy at the top and on something that I don't even know yet. And
Yep.
that's a valid concern. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And so for a lot of people, I saw it was a big trend. They're selling out of Bay Area, maybe going to the Central Valley where they can get more cash flow, or selling out of the Bay Area or Central Valley going out of state where they
Yep.
can get more cash flow. But now I think you could, almost be in the same market and do what you just said, sell at the top and then buy with favorable terms, and defer your taxes all at the same time, right?
Mm-hmm.
So seemed like that would make a lot of sense, man. And as we're navigating through this and wrapping up, what advice? And one thing I was going to say, this seems to be a fluid situation. So we may even see, like, you guys are still advocating, other groups are advocating. Do you think there's a chance we might see some other adjustments or, whatever, changes to this?
I do. I do. And one of the reasons I do is that when the IRS issues their extensions, they rely on a revenue procedure that they put out, 2018-58. And in that revenue procedure, the IRS almost always will have a specific 4-month, 120-day extension in the 45 days or in the 180 days. So, if you were in an exchange, you've got an extra 4 months to sell, and under another 4 months to make to identify, another 4 months to purchase. This time they didn't give extensions nearly that long. I mean, at most, if you close escrow on April 1st, you got an extra 2 months, which is not nearly as long as we typically will have. So we will not be surprised if we get longer extensions. And again, especially if the society is still, kind of locked down when we're in May and into June, I would not be surprised at all for the IRS to issue longer extensions. We're hoping so on behalf of our clients. We want our clients' exchanges to succeed. We want to make sure that people, when they go into an exchange, feel that they're doing this with a very good expectation of being able to complete the exchange. And I think the market is going to be there as if the IRS can give the right signals.
Yeah, well, that would make sense, right? And I think that from what it looks like, the IRS is being real proactive with this. All things considered, and that's the great news about this. And I think that as a marketplace, as professionals handling these transactions, and as the investors, the buyers and sellers who are doing these transactions, I think it's just a matter of handling things with diligence, care, and wisdom versus panic and emotion. And I know there was a lot of that a few weeks ago. I feel as though, just in general, talking to clients, talking to other people in the business, that we kind of settled down a little bit. We don't know exactly, what the future lies ahead, but at least I'm seeing cooler heads prevail, which is great. Because I remember in 2008, it was like a 3-year, from like 2008 to 2011, man. People were just not thinking straight. And I remember showing people buildings in Oakland for like, like building fourplexes for like 100-something thousand, apartment buildings you could buy 40, 30 grand a door, right?
Yeah.
And people telling me, nah, man, I don't like that neighborhood, or nah, Oakland's never coming back. It's going to be down. It's going to be like Stockton. And then people in Stockton, oh no, I'll never buy in Stockton again. Both those markets have, rebound is not even the word, but it was like the mentality. And it was only the people who were taking those entrepreneurial risks, and we know a few of those clients that took those risks and made fortunes, right? So what I'm seeing now is a lot more cooler heads, and I think the cooler heads will prevail, which is great. But I think it's important for us all to know it's a fluid situation, and we have to stay on our toes because we don't know what's going to happen. And one thing as a broker that I'm foreseeing talking to clients about is that a lot of people are getting 90-day mortgage relief, both commercial and residential. There's no foreclosures and or evictions happening in the state of California right now for a period of time, but
Right.
tenants will have to repay rent. Owners and landlords will have to repay those mortgages. So right now we got a breather, but at some point, stuff's gonna have to get paid. So hopefully people are preparing for that, saving up, being diligent with their funds. And then wrapping up, Ron, what advice would you give to anybody who's either in an exchange or considering an exchange in terms of just giving them the best chance for success as possible?
Well, I mean, if you're going to sell your property anyway, there's no reason not to set up the exchange.
Yeah,
I mean, if nothing else, you're buying yourself the time to look for property, whether that time is going to be the regular 45 days, whether it's going to be until July 15th, whether it's going to be even longer. I mean, the cost of setting up an exchange is so small, like $1,000 on average. I mean, that you're basically buying yourself time to look. And if you're going to sell your property, don't give up doing an exchange just because you think, oh, there's no way I'm going to find something, oh, the market's going to crash or whatever. I think this is a good opportunity for you
yeah,
to actually get out there and look. Now, we're not predicting. I don't think you or I are predicting the market prices are going to go down to $40,000 a door like they did
right,
back in 2008. We're not
right,
predicting that.
right,
Most in recessions, real estate doesn't move that much.
right.
It doesn't go down more than 10 or 15%. In some cases, it actually goes up during a recession. So
Yep.
we don't want to give people the wrong impression that market prices are going to crash. Everyone's going to be able to steal property out there.
Yeah,
But if you're thinking about doing an exchange, don't let the current situation hold you back from getting out there, from looking, from using brokers like you, Steve, to get out there and look for property for them, because it's not like you have to go to open houses every weekend to look at properties. Okay, you
right.
got people like you who are doing that. You get the stuff online. So if you can wait a little bit, then you're going to wait. But if you don't want to wait, if you're going to be selling anyway, don't let that stop you from setting up the exchange.
Well, and they can't set that exchange up a day after close, right? They got to come to you at least a day or two before that deed gets recorded, right?
Right. The exchange has to be set up prior to escrow closing, because the escrow officer has to know that the funds get sent to the intermediary at the close of escrow. The day escrow closes, the clients either have received or at least have access to the funds. They cannot do an exchange at that point. We have to be involved before escrow closes.
And what do they call that? Constructive receipt or something like
Constructive
that?
receipt, exactly.
Got you. Got you. Well, hey man, we got to do another seminar, or I guess webinar. It's been a while, but I would love to have you on. So I'll reach back out. Let's set that up sooner than later, because I think if we mapped out a whole hour, hopped on a webinar, I think that would be great for the marketplace. And
Sounds good.
Ron, for people online who want to reach out to you, what's the best way to contact you?
Well, the best way is my cell phone, 408-483-1031, 408-483-1031. Our website is IPX 1031 Investment Property Exchange. So IPX 1031. If you go .com, if you go there, you can find me pretty easily. And feel free to chat me up, send me emails, send me texts, send me phone, call me, however I can best help you answer questions. That's what I'm here for.
Man, I always wondered, did you get like a trademark on on that 1031 on your cell phone? Or like, how did you work that one, man? That was
I got really lucky. And you talk about good salesperson.
yeah.
This was when the people at the companies had to sell. I went there and this woman looked through every single prefix that she had. She spent 25 minutes looking up phone numbers.
Wow.
Finally found one with 1031 on there. Gave it to me. I sent her back 5 clients. Like, when you go look for a phone, you go to this person.
Yeah.
She's the one who's going to help you. And so it pays to be a good salesperson.
Well, I'm glad you said that, man. That's good. And you've had that number for
years.
Since I've known you.
Yeah.
And I mean, right. So that's a big deal. And it does pay to be a good salesperson. And I think as we wrap up, you guys, your sales ability, not your convincing and closing, but your true sales ability, finding a need and filling it in a way where you connect with people is, I think, going to make the difference during this time. And if you're looking for a brokerage to help you out, check us out, infinityinvestments.net. You can take a look at our videos, our listings, and book an appointment with us. But let's do some business and let's get through this together with wisdom, knowledge, and clarity. Thanks a lot, Ron. Really appreciate it, man. And look forward to doing the next webinar with you.
Sounds good. Stay safe, Steve, and look forward to seeing you in person one day soon.
All right, soon. All right, man.
All right.
Thanks, Ron.